In this video, we'll be learning how to cut and sew this gorgeous Caribbean scuba dress. This dress has two inseam pockets by the side. In my previous video, I uploaded a detailed tutorial on how to cut and sew the upper part of this dress from the shoulder to the half length. I uploaded a detailed video on how to cut and sew the upper part of this dress already. So this particular video is how to cut and sew the lower part of this dress, because I mentioned in that my video that I'll be uploading how to cut the lower part of this dress in my next video. If you've not seen that video, you need to check it out. The link is currently showing up on your screen, and it will also be down in the description box. So when you are done watching this one, you should go back and watch that one so that you will understand what I'm trying to say better. I made this dress for a yummy mommy and an adorable baby girl, and I'll be uploading a detailed tutorial on how I was able to cut and sew for the daughter as well in my subsequent videos. But for now, let's concentrate on that of the mom. Now, continuing from where I stopped in my previous video, which is how I was able to cut and sew this half length. The next thing I did was to fold this half length into two and measure it. And what I measured, I had to multiply that two into two because the half length was a fold of two while I was measuring. Now I had to pick up my pen and paper to do this calculation. Even though what I was writing is not that bold, I will be explaining it as I'm speaking. So what I did was I multiplied what I measured on the waistline times 2.5. Depending on the quantity of fabric you want or how full you want the pleated part of the dress to be, you can do times 2.5, you can do times 3, times 4. It just depends on how full you want it to be. But in my case, I did times 2.5 of the waistline, and what I got, I used that to cut for the first layer. You can see that that Caribbean is in three layers. For the length, after deducting the half length, if you check very well, you will see that the three layers, they are not the same length, but the first and second layer is the same length. So I made the first and second layer the same length, and I made the third layer a little bit shorter than the first and the second. It's just my decision. You can decide to make the three of them the same length. If you've deducted your half length from the whole length, whatever is remaining, just divide it by 3, and you make length of each, whatever you have gotten after dividing it by 3. But in my case, I just wanted to make the third layer a little bit shorter than the first and second layer. So I did not divide my measurement by 3. I didn't divide it equally. Now, for the second layer, which is the middle layer, what I did was the first layer, you remember that I cut times 2.5 of the waistline. For the second layer, I cut times 2.5 of what I've cut for the first layer. And for the third layer, I cut times 2.5 of what I've cut for the second layer. Now, let's say this person's waist is 30, for example. Let's say it's 30. For the first layer, I did times 2.5 of 30. That's 75. For the second layer, I did times 2.5 of 75. That's 150, 225. For the third layer, I did times 2 of the second layer. But if you want it full, you should do times 2.5 of the second layer. But in my case, I just had to do times 2 of the second layer. You can now see that this style consumes a lot of fabric. So after cutting all these layers out, here they are. Then the next I did was to cut the pocket. For the pocket, I did a perfect square that measures 13 by 13. So I just cut 13 in length and 13 in breadth for the pocket. After cutting the pocket, the next thing I did was to start sewing. So when I got to my sewing machine, the first thing I did was to sew the inseam pocket. I folded my fabric into four leaving zipper allowance of 1.5 inch at the back. You can see that I've folded this into four now. This side is where the pocket to be because that is the side. The other side is center front and center back. So this is the side. For the pocket, I measured 2 inches first. Then I made the width of the pocket 6 inches. Then I marked 2 inches. This 2 inches is where what I'll use to create a channel for like the pocket to stay on. So in total, I cut down 10 inches. I don't necessarily have to share, like I don't have to cut it through to the whole length of this first layer. I just cut 10 inches out of it. Then I proceeded to fixing the pocket. In case you don't know how to fix an inseam pocket, I have a detailed video on how to cut and sew and fix an inseam pocket on a dress. The link is currently showing up and it will also be down in the description box below. So I fixed the inseam pocket, and the next thing to do is to gather layer 2 on this layer 1 because this is the first layer now. So firstly, I'll close that part, leaving the zip allowance. You know, the zip is coming from the half length, but it will definitely be extended into this first layer. So I just brought my zip, I brought my half length, I measured the zip on the half length and I extended it into this first layer, and I marked the length that I want the zip to be. I just left like 1 inch from the zip that I didn't mark. I used the whole length of the zip. Now from where the zip stops to the whole length of this first layer, I closed it, I stitched it down, and I started making my pleat. This is the second layer. I closed it, the second layer. Then I pinned the two joining. Now the two joining is automatically the center back now. I pinned the first one on the second one first, and I folded it into four like this. I marked center front, I marked the sides. For the second layer, you know, for the first layer is easy for me to identify the side considering that it has two pockets by the side. So where the pocket is the side. But for this second layer, it's not that easy except I fold it into four like this and mark the sides. So I marked center front, I marked the two sides. I did not want to notch because you can see that it's a Caribbean dress. All the edges will be outside. So I didn't want to notch. I just used chalk to mark it. So after marking all these points, pin center front on center front for the two layers, center back on center back, the two sides for pin the two sides on each other. I mean side for the first layer and side for the second layer. And let the number 2 be on top of number 1 with I used 1.5 inch in my case. It depends on how much you want it to be on top of it. You can use half, you can use one, but I used 1.5 inch and I pinned it down firmly and I started making my pleat. You need to do all these things I'm saying. If not, you end up saying that one pleat, if you don't pin it accurately like this, you end up saying that one pleat, like the pleat is much on one side than the other. So I made sure that I pinned them together correctly and I made my pleats. And for the pleats, please be consistent. If you are using 1 inch to make the pleats, be consistent with your 1 inch. If you are using 2 inches, I mean the how big you want each pleat to be. Be consistent so that some pleats won't end up being bigger than the other. So the way I pinned the second one on the first one, when I was done with the pleating, I marked for the third layer now. I marked the center front. You know, center back is automatically where the join is. Where I joined it is the center back. So I marked center front, I marked the two sides, I pinned center back for layer 3 on center back for layer 2, I pinned center front on center front, I pinned the two sides on each other with 1.5 inch. Like I pinned number 3 on number 2 so that the edges can be outside with 1.5 inch. So just make sure that you pin correctly. If you don't pin correctly, you will see that as you keep sewing, it will give you problems, kind of. So when I was done doing the second pleat, it's now time for me to now pleat these three layers on the half length. It's easier to make your pleat a Caribbean down first before bringing it to come and attach to the half length. So for the half length, I marked center front. I marked center front for this first layer as well. I pinned it on top of the half length with 1.5 inch. The extension is 1.5 inch, and the side is automatically where the pocket is, so it's easier for me to identify considering that this half length too there's joining on the side. So I pinned the sides on the left and the right, and I started making my pleat. You can see me measuring. I don't want it to be beyond 1.5 inch so that one side won't appear longer than the rest of the sides. So I did my pleats. My name is Oluwatosin. In case this is the first video of mine that you are seeing, and you're welcome, please consider subscribing to my channel if you've not, and don't just subscribe, turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified when next time I upload a new video on this channel. So it is this simple. When I was done doing that, the next thing I did was to fix my zip. If you have seen that the first part, which is the part where I cut and sew this half length, you would see that up till this point, I've still not turned the zip allowance. So I fixed my zip first before turning the zip allowance so that the edge of the zip on the neckline can be turned. And after doing this, our dress is almost ready. You can see that the zip is already turned and it's coming out neat. The next thing was just to do that bow on the shoulder. So I cut this piece that is 60 inches long and I think is 10 inches wide. I made the mouth into pencil mouth on both sides and then I turned it. After turning, I just fold to make that bow. I'll be uploading a detailed video on how I was able to just cut and fold that bow in a very short tutorial that I'll upload next. And after all being said and done, this dress came out looking like this. It is so beautiful. Don't forget I mentioned that the sewing tutorial to the upper part of this dress, the link to it is down in the description box. And if you have any questions, don't forget that the comment section below is always open to welcome all of your questions. If you found this video helpful or interesting, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you've not subscribed, kindly do and turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified when I upload a new video on this channel. Like I mentioned earlier, I made this dress for a yummy mommy and an adorable baby girl. The tutorial to the cutting and sewing of these baby girls on will be dropping soon on my channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.